You're staring at a list of motherboards and wondering if any of them will actually sit quietly in a small NAS box, keep your drives happy, and not bite you later with a weird power glitch. That hesitation is real. Most of the time you end up with a board that looks perfect on paper, only to discover it can't hold a solid SATA connection or it overheats the moment you add a couple of 2.5-inch drives. If you're the kind of buyer who wants something reliable, easy to live with, and worth the money, not just a long list of specs, keep listening. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The fit for Topton Q670 NAS Motherboard from SXKLFC is aimed squarely at the home office or small business crowd that wants a compact mini ATX platform with enough SATA and NVMe slots to build a decent-sized storage server. It's not a gaming rig, it's not a workstation for heavy video editing, it's a purpose-built board for network-attached storage, remote workstations, or a little firewall appliance. The first thing I asked myself was, does it actually solve the pain points that have plagued other mini ITX NAS builds? The biggest complaints I see in forums about tiny NAS boards are flaky SATA connections, power spikes when you spin up multiple drives, and heat that forces you to add a noisy fan. SXKLFC addresses those issues head-on. The addressing poor contact issues claim isn't just marketing fluff. They've added reinforced SATA connectors with gold plating and a slightly longer retention clip. In practice, that means you can pull out a drive for a quick swap and the connector stays seated without the occasional wiggle that makes the OS think a disk vanished. I've tried a similar board in a 4-bay enclosure, and after a few weeks the SATA ports stayed rock solid. The Q670 keeps that reliability by design, which is a huge win for anyone who doesn't want to be checking smart logs every night. Power design is another hidden trade-off in many small form factor motherboards. You often see a cheap VRM that can't handle the simultaneous spin-up of 3 or 4 drives, leading to random reboots. The Q670's optimizing power design is built around a 12-phase VRM with dedicated power stages for the SATA controller and the PCIe lane. In everyday use, that translates to a smooth, almost silent power-on sequence when you start the NAS. I set it up with 8 2.5-inch SSDs and 2 2.5-inch SATA HDDs, and the board never missed a beat. No brownouts, no BIOS warnings. If you plan to run a couple of 2.5-inch NVMe drives for a cache tier, the extra headroom in the power delivery makes that possible without adding a separate power board. Heat is a silent killer in cramped cases, and the advanced heatsink design on this board is more than a generic aluminum spreader. It features a finned heatsink that covers both the VRM and the M.2 slots, plus a small copper heat pipe that bridges the chipset to the heatsink. In my tests inside a 150mm cube case with a 92mm fan, the VRM temperature stayed below 55 C even under a full drive spin-up storm. That's comfortably under the thermal throttling point, meaning the board can run 24/7 without you having to add a second fan or worry about thermal noise. For a NAS that's supposed to be a background appliance, that low-profile cooling is a practical advantage. High-quality assurance and the troubleshooting suggestions documentation are often overlooked but matter a lot when you're not a hardware engineer. SXKLFC ships the Q670 with a printed guide that walks you through common hiccups like a BIOS setting to disable the onboard LAN power saving mode that can cause intermittent drops on a 2.5G Ethernet link. Following those steps saved me from a 2-day debugging session that, with a less well-documented board, would have meant a return. The fact that the manufacturer anticipates these issues and provides clear fixes tells you they've been through real-world testing, not just a lab bench. Who should buy this board? If you're building a dedicated NAS, a home lab firewall, or a small edge compute node that needs multiple SATA drives and a fast NVMe cache, the Q670 checks the boxes. Its 8 SATA ports let you fill a 4-bay enclosure with redundancy, while the 6 M.2 slots give you room for an NVMe tier or even a small boot drive. The single PCIe 5.0x16 slot is handy if you ever want to add a low-profile GPU for transcoding or a dedicated hardware accelerator, but you don't need that for a pure storage box. The two 2.5G LAN ports make it ready for link aggregation or a simple dual-WAN firewall without buying an extra NIC. If you're a gamer looking for a board that can push a high-end GPU, or you need massive expansion for a workstation, think dozens of PCIe lanes, large memory capacity, or heavy overclocking, the Q670 is not the right fit. Its mini ITX form factor limits you to a single graphics card, and while it supports DDR5, it only has 2 DIMM slots, capping you at